So take a good look at that picture there. That picture was taken in 1923 before a football or soccer game, depending on where you're living, between West Ham United and the Bolton Wanderers. Anyways, if you notice, every man in that picture is wearing a hat. And I'm not talking about a baseball hat like this one. I'm talking about a full-on Don Draper, let's get down to business, go home, drink myself into oblivion kind of hat. And you don't see that anymore. You don't see a gathering of men and everyone wearing hats. So what the hell happened to the hat?
Hat wearing peaked from the late 19th century to the end of the 1920s. Back in 1912, men didn't leave the house without a hat, and boys wore caps. There isn't one sole reason, but many factors contributing to the decline. The most popular reason is the car. Car roofs made it difficult to wear a hat and generally made hats useless. In the 1920s, less than 1% of the population owned a car. This figure rose to 25% in 1940 and 55% in 1970. Men still bought hats, but wore them less. In the 1920s, people walked everywhere, rode horses, traveled in open carriages, so they needed protection from the elements. Once the automobile came around, they found shelter. Another theory suggests public appearances of hats declined because they were a reminder of the time men spent in uniform during World War II. Men who fought the war didn't want to wear hats because they reminded them of helmets. The Hat Research Foundation...
Yeah, before we continue on there, the Hat Research Foundation is a real foundation. Yeah, that existed.
Conducted a survey in 1947, which found 19% of men who didn't wear hats answered, "Because I had to in the army," as their reason. There was actually a big push to revive hats. The Hat Research Foundation ran ads claiming men needed to wear hats to work magic. Newspapers slammed the bareheaded fashion. People who walked into a hat town without a hat were abused by hat wearers. Everyone's head was on a swivel. Some linked the decline to politics and those in charge. Look no further than John F. Kennedy's inauguration. Before Kennedy, all presidents wore top hats on their first day in office. Kennedy brought one, but hardly wore it. Kennedy was charismatic, on trend, and had a full head of hair. And after him, guys everywhere, even balding ones, went without a hat. Some disagree with the Kennedy logic and say it was hairless President Dwight D. Eisenhower who put an end to the hat. Remember those cars I mentioned earlier? Well, in the 1950s, Dwight built a vast highway system across America, turning it into an interstate haven, making it easier for people to drive, and again, it's cramped in cars, so putting on your top hat and stuffing into the driver's seat makes for an uncomfortable commute. After all this, hats were on the ropes. Then the Beatles, James Dean, Elvis, and Steve McQueen came along to put the final nails in the hat coffin. There was a rebel attitude to these new cultural icons which grabbed the attention of a younger generation who wanted to be anything but the older generation.
So what about today? Well, baseball hats are pretty fashionable today. You know, you get your typical baseball hat. Lids has a whole catalog of baseball hats. They're doing pretty well. They're good for, you know, covering up a bad hair day or a bad haircut. You know, I haven't had a haircut in a long time. It's kind of a bad hair day. What you do is just take the hat, throw it on, cover it up. Magic. Nobody knows you're having a bad hair day. And of course, they're good to wearing to the ballpark, supporting the team, all that stuff.
It's the bottom of the 7th inning, the last chance to order beer. But we didn't come here to drink beer. We came here to win this ball game.